Tonight's story is The Night Before the Tooth Fairy. And it was written by Natasha Wing, and it was illustrated by Johansen Newman. Here's the dedication page. I'm not going to read those today. And then here's the title page. "'Twas the night before the Tooth Fairy would come take my tooth. I'd been so excited ever since it got loose." And you'll notice that the word should have been loose, but this is a rhyming story, and because it's a rhyming story and it's a poem and it needs to rhyme, they needed a word that would rhyme with tooth, so they changed the word loose to looth. And also, this little boy has lost a tooth, and sometimes when you lose teeth, it changes or it affects the way that you talk. So instead of being able to say the word loose, you might actually pronounce it as looth. And it's just because you've lost a tooth. Over here, it says, "My bottom tooth was dangling and twisting about. Tonight was the night, it just had to come out." Have you ever had a tooth like that? That it's just dangling and you can twist it with your tongue and move it all around, and it's just kind of hanging on, and you think, my goodness, this thing has got to come out. "I wiggled it and waggled it for such a long time." So you see here, he's looking in the mirror and he's wiggling it and moving it all about. And now he's laying here reading his book and he's just a-fiddling with it. "While my baby brother flashed me his funny toothless smile." So the word while and the word smile, they rhyme. And I should have done that for the previous page. Let's go back and look at those. It says, "My bottom tooth was dangling and twisting about. Tonight was the night, it just had to come out." So about and out. Words that rhyme end in the same ending sound. Oh, sorry, we already read that. "Mom handed me an apple. She said, 'Here, take a bite.' 'No, 'cause if I swallow it, guess who won't come tonight?'" So he's afraid that if he takes a bite out of that apple, he's going to lose his tooth. And it's going to be because he swallowed it. And then, if he swallows his tooth, the tooth fairy won't come to see him and bring him any money. Because remember, the tooth fairy needs that tooth. So let's look here. The words that rhyme are bite and tonight. "Dad said, 'Let's yank it out with a doorknob and string.' 'No way, no how,' I told him. 'You're not gonna do a thing.'" So he just wants to let that tooth just come out on its own. He doesn't want to do the whole doorknob and the string deal. But I'll tell you that when I was younger, I actually did that with one of my teeth. My mom, she tied a string to my tooth and tied it to the door. And then she flung the door open and my tooth came out. So, yeah, it's pretty funny. It probably wasn't very funny then, but it's funny now. So, anyway, so let's look on this page for the words that rhyme. We have string and thing. And you'll notice that it's always the last word on the second line of the little stanza. So this is the first line, here's the second line, and it's always the last word here. Here's the third line, and here's the fourth line. So it's always the second and the fourth that rhyme. So string and thing. "Then my brother grabbed our kitten, which scared our cockapoo, who knocked me right over, and out my tooth flew." Oh my goodness. So the cat scratched the dog and scared him, and then the dog knocked the little boy over, and out flies his tooth. There's his tooth right there. My gracious. My brother looked around the floor on his hands and knees. When he found it, picture time! We smiled and I yelled, cheese! So he's ready to take his picture with his missing tooth now, with his little gap where his tooth is not there anymore. Then I ran to the mirror, and what did I see? A cool gap in my smile where my tooth used to be. I could stick a straw through it, then sip up my drink. Or pretend I'm a fountain and spray water in the sink. So let's flip back and look at this page. Over here we have, on the second line, knees. And these, I know this is 4 lines, but this actually counts as 1, and this counts as 1. So the word we're looking for is cheese. Here we have C and B, and then we have drink and sink. Alrighty, said Mom. Time to climb into bed, or the tooth fairy may visit some other house instead. My tooth was put under my pillow with care, in hope that the tooth fairy soon would be there. So over here we have bed and instead. And here we have care and there. Now I think, I'm not sure, but I think this is the first time that the words don't end with the exact same letters. You know how I said earlier it had to have the same sound, and it doesn't have to have the same letters at the end. As long as it makes the same sound, it rhymes. So we have bed and instead. See, bed ends with ed, and this ends with ead. And then over here we have care, which doesn't follow the rule for the way that when you learn to spell words that have the silent E on the end and then like the long vowel, which this isn't one of those words, but it looks like one of those words, this doesn't follow the rule. So this is actually a word that you just have to remember how to spell it. And then there, it's another one of those words. It's spelled like a silent E, like a word with a silent E in the long vowel. And that you call those vowel consonant E words. But, anyway, so they don't have, they don't have those same letters at the end. But they still rhyme because they have the same sound. So over here, it says, Tooth Fairy, look under my pillow. So he's excited. He wants to make sure that Tooth Fairy, make sure she doesn't miss his tooth. I hopped in and nestled all snug in my bed, while visions of fairyland danced in my head. So he's having dreams. Excuse me, he's having dreams about what fairyland looks like. When what to my wondering eyes should appear but a twinkling glow. Ooh. The Tooth Fairy was here. Oh my. So let's flip back real quick. We have bed and head. And there's another one. Bed ends in ed and head ends in ead. And then over here we have up here. And then on the next page we have the word here. It says, her wand, how it glittered. Her dimples, how merry. Her wings were so sparkly, so light and so airy. So you look here and we have the word merry, and then we have airy. And see, they don't end the same way either. They're not spelled the same, but they still rhyme because they have the same sound. She reached under my pillow. I pretended to be sleeping and slipped my tooth in a pouch where it stayed for safekeeping. So we have sleeping, safekeeping. And see, both of those words end in eeping. See, sleeping and safekeeping. I kept one eye open as she fluttered around. Then poof, she was gone without making a sound. So the two words that rhyme are around and sound. And see, they end with the same letters at the end. So you see him, he's got, sorry my phone, he's got one eye open and he's watching her fly around. I dug under my pillow and felt something funny. All right, the Tooth Fairy left me some money. How much money did he get? If you look up here, you see there's a 1 there. That means he got $1. He got a dollar bill and it's worth $1. Or you can say it's worth 100 cents. And this man here on the front of that dollar, that's George Washington. He's the first president of the United States. We just celebrated George on President's Day. So we have funny and money. So there's Mom and Dad and they're sleeping. And here comes the little boy. He says, "Look what I got," I yelled with a whoop and a holler. "The Tooth Fairy gave me a spanking new $1." So he is super duper excited about his dollar bill that he got for his tooth. Oh, sorry about that. We have holler and dollar. That woke up my brother, who started to cry. When Dad picked him up, we could see why. Why do you think the little boy's crying? You know, all that hollering he was doing woke him up, and he started to cry. Why do you think he started to cry? Now my brother and I both have a new grin. My first tooth came out, and his first tooth came in. So you see little brother, he's got a little tooth coming in there. You can see this little boy, you can see his little gap he's got right there where his tooth came out. So I hope you enjoyed that story. And I shall see you guys tomorrow night. Hope you sleep well.